Handheld versions of Ace Combat games are nothing new nowadays. We've got Ace Combat X Skies of Deception, XI Skies of Incursion, Joint Assault, Assault Horizon Triggerfinger, a game, if you could even call it that, for iOS that the majority of you probably haven't heard of, Assault Horizon Legacy aka 3D Cross Rumble, Northern Wings, you get the idea. Back in the mid-2000s though, nothing of the sort had been done yet. Every single Ace Combat game up to Ace Combat 5 had been released for a home console. The PlayStation for Air Combat, Ace Combat 2, and Ace Combat 3, and the PlayStation 2 for Ace Combat 4 and 5. This next Ace Combat title in the timeline would go on to be different in that regard. The franchise's first ever handheld title would be released in North America on February 22nd, 2005, and in Europe on June 9th, 2006, or August 25th, 2006 if you're referencing Wikipedia and not the Ace Combat wiki, for the Game Boy Advance. So, how did Ace Combat's maiden flight into the handheld skies go? Let's take to the skies and... You know what? I can't even do the introductory bit for this. This game is terrible. I'm going to let you all know right off the bat, there's a reason why this video is not a retrospective. Hell, I can't even confidently call this a review for reasons I'll explain in the latter half of the video. But starting with what I would normally talk about first in one of these Ace Combat retrospectives, that being the development, there's nothing. Nothing on Acepedia, nothing on the Ace Combat wiki, nothing when you type up Ace Combat Advanced Development into Google, and in no interviews that I have seen as of yet is this game even mentioned regarding something like the rise of the Ace Combat franchise. Had it not been for the existence of the internet, it's very possible that Ace Combat Advance could have become a myth or an urban legend. What I can tell you is that Ace Combat Advance was made by Humansoft. Humansoft, according to their own website, are known for games such as Umizoomi Maths, Barbie as the Island Princess. Oh cool, a DS port of Hot Wheels beat that. Disney Princess, Royal Adventure. Clearly the best developers to hire for an arcade flight action game. I can also tell you that this is the only Ace Combat game to have not been released in Japan. Pretty wild considering Japan is where the Ace Combat series was born. And that's also part of why this game is one of the lowest selling Ace Combat titles. It also doesn't help that the gameplay itself is really rough, which we'll get to in a second. Let me give you the plot summary real quick. Ace Combat Advance is set in the year 2032, 8 years before the events of Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere. Corporations like General Resource are starting to become serious threats to the status of the world as it is known. With the rise of private militaries, millions of dollars in income, and serious power gains as a result, which threatens to topple countries and governments, something needs to be done. A forceful checks and balances, if you will. In response, a new military force is created, with you playing as Ace, a pilot who is part of the United Air Defense, UAD for short. It's up to you to chip away at General Resource's power to prevent a total takeover of the world as it's known. Given that we see General Resource as one of the big conglomerates competing with Newcom and Ace Combat 3, we know that the UAD ultimately failed in their objective to prevent General Resource's rise to power. Although this conglomerate isn't running the entire world as we know it in Ace Combat 3 due to the competition with Newcom and occasional pestering from UPO, it's still strange to be fighting for a side that you know is going to fail in their objective in the end. Just something that I wanted to point out about the game's story, since that's as much of it as you're going to get. This game is quite literally just briefing, plane and weapon selection, mission, repeat. No cutscenes, no paragraphs of text akin to the international version of Ace Combat 3, or rather the US version, since the European version doesn't even have those text walls, believe it or not, or anything else. In all fairness, this is the Game Boy Advance we're talking about, a device that's not too well known for its graphical capabilities, so to expect animated cutscenes or things of the like would be a stretch. And games that have a gameplay focus with the story taking a back seat can still be fun. Just take a look at Ace Combat 2. But the difference here is that while Ace Combat 2's gameplay is solid and fun, Ace Combat Advance's gameplay is rough. Addressing the elephant in the room first and foremost, Ace Combat Advance is a 2D top-down shooter. You still fly and fight in a sandbox environment, just from a different dimension. Before each mission, you get to choose both your plane and special weapon, with all of the planes being fictional original aircraft instead of real-life ones. When in the actual game, you can turn left and right, descend and ascend, fire your cannon, fire your missiles, swap between the standard missiles and your special weapon, and you can call in a resupply plane called Mother to refill your ammo and make repairs. repairs. If I had to pick a single issue that is the biggest one regarding Advance's gameplay, that would be the feedback. From which target you have selected at any given moment, to destroying said target, to taking damage, there's no extra polish to convey that information to the player. There's no green squares around targets that turn red as soon as you're within missile lock-on range. There is a radar at the bottom right with white brackets around a target, so maybe that's how target selection is done? Even if that's the case, there's no clear communication of that. Multiple enemies can be in your face at once, which means using missiles can be tricky since you don't know where they'll go. Tackling anti-air defenses is a whole different beast on its own, in particular with the SAMs, because as soon as you have a SAM in your sights, a missile is immediately fired at you. No warning beforehand or time to react, it's just an instant missile being sent your way. Reminds me of the SAM defenses from Ace Combat 2, funnily enough, in that aspect. When you do get hit, there's no feedback other than your health percentage going down, no sound effect exclusive to you getting hit, no screen shake, or anything else. Needless to say, the game is a mess. These factors are all things that I came across during the first mission of the game. Take all of this into account, plus the fact that my Steam Deck's Bluetooth seemed to shit the bed as my Xbox controller disconnected, and that was when I made the decision to not advance any further. Shout out to my Steam Deck for mercy killing my run with the game, because I have a hunch that I was saved from a bad headache that would have formed if I had kept going. That's right, I have not completed a single mission in Ace Combat Advance. Have you ever had a moment where you're playing a new video game for the first time and you come across so many red flags during your first session? You're so put off by them that you put the game down and never return to it? That's the kind of moment I had with Ace Combat Advance. I know that I'll catch some flack for not seeing this game through to the end, and I know some people may even think I'm being too harsh since it's a GBA game we're talking about here. But personally, I think that this is a case of it not being a matter of the tool, but rather how it's used. An excellent Ace Combat GBA game could have been made here, but even if Ace Combat Advance was never destined to be a good game, if it was just outsourced to a different developing studio for the sake of there being an Ace Combat game on the GBA, I still need to talk about the game as it is. I know this is quite the contrast to my in-depth retrospectives that I've done for every Ace Combat game up to this point, and I should, emphasis on should, be able to make full-blown retrospectives for the other handheld titles I haven't covered yet, minus Triggerfinger, so to see me be done this fast with Advance may be puzzling. Like I said at the start though, not only is there nothing for me to talk about development-wise, the game is so rough that I can already sense how bad of a time I would have if I pressed on. It would be one thing if the game was rough, but I cared about it enough still to push my way through to the end. But in this case, on top of there being no development info and the gameplay being so rough, part of why I'm punching out early on is because I just don't care. Hell, I care more about Assault Horizon compared to this game. It just doesn't make any sense for me to keep going if I'm going to get so little out of this experience, and therefore have you get so little out of this experience because I'd be mishmashing things together in desperation for a video. Speaking of experiences with Ace Combat, I have a heads up I need to say regarding the next retrospective. I know this is a weird transition to go from talking shit about Ace Combat Advance to talking about my next Ace Combat retrospective, but bear with me here. Ace Combat Zero: The Belkan War is the next Ace Combat game on the timeline, and therefore the next retrospective I'll be doing. For those of you who don't know, Ace Combat Zero is my personal favorite title out of this franchise, and because of that, I want to really go the extra mile for this one. I've still been putting in the effort for my other retrospectives. I don't want it to sound like I'm shooting down my own work here, but since this game is my personal favorite, I want to really make sure I do it justice. Therefore, I'll be needing a lot more time in order to make that video with some of the things I have planned for it. Are all of my plans going to come to fruition? Probably not, but I'm hoping for at least some of what I've envisioned in my mind to work out. At the end of the day, I want to exhaust all of my options before piecing together what I have. While I'm no stranger to needing lots of time between Ace Combat retrospectives, I did want to give the heads up for this one in particular. I will be continuing other YouTube uploads along with Twitch streams in the meantime though, so content will still be coming. I just need some more time specifically for the next Ace Combat retrospective. I really hope that I'm able to do Ace Combat Zero justice, and I'm looking forward to being able to upload that video when the time comes.